each of you decided to join in tonight. This is a part of our effort as a city council and as the District A representative to try and keep this community connected during this difficult time. This is so important and it's challenging, but you know, even though this is nothing like getting together in person or being able to gather together in the places we usually do, it's nice to be able to see some familiar faces, and hopefully there'll be some good information that I can gather from you all. As this is a listening session, I am going to make some brief introductory comments about things that have been going on at City Council and how we've been working to respond to the crisis, and then I'll open it up for questions. We're going to generally follow the same type of procedure that City Council uses during citizen petition sessions. So I won't respond to each comment or question. I'll make some notes and wrap up at the end and give myself some homework assignments if I have some follow-up information that I can provide. We will ask that you limit comments to 3 minutes so that everybody who wants to say something has an opportunity to do so. And then, like I said, at the end of the call, I'll wrap up and try and identify any follow-up information that I can provide or any questions that I can answer. Again, glad everybody could join. This is a really different and confusing kind of challenge that we're facing as a community. And we've been working hard at City Council to do what we can to support the community staying together. And chief among those responsibilities for our city is to work hand in hand with our county public health department, our state Department of Health and Human Resources, and to give a clear message of guidance for our citizens on ways that they can protect themselves and keep the community safe. So our mayor has certainly been doing that. She's been instrumental in leading the coalition of Wake County mayors to unanimous support for these stay-at-home measures and these social distancing guidelines that are so important to stopping the spread of the virus. And she's been working very closely with County Commission Chair Greg Ford and the County Public Health Department, where their experts have been analyzing the case data, the information they're getting from hospitals, and it's been a really effective and inspiring working relationship. And everything that I've seen so far looks like it's working, and Wake County's having a lot of success. Of course, we are under a stay-at-home order by the governor until May the 8th, and we as a city are still encouraging folks to abide by those restrictions to keep yourself and your family and the whole community safe. So turning then to some ways that the city has been trying to support the community through this crisis. Of course, as a big employer in the community, the city has first prioritized keeping our employees safe. And that has meant cutting back on some services that we know and enjoy from the city. I've heard a lot from people about yard waste and why the yard waste service was suspended. So I'll go ahead and try to address that one now. And if you have further questions, glad to talk about that some more. The yard waste decision was really about limiting the number of people, sanitation workers, solid waste employees that are in the same truck. So the city reduced the size of crews to make sure that there's only 2 folks riding in a truck at the same time. That makes it a little slower to pick up the regular garbage and recycle, and it meant that we had to cut back the yard waste service. We have since reopened the yard waste center for residential use, so if you have that stuff and you can get it to the yard waste center, it will be accepted. Aside from reducing services, keeping our employees safe, we've also been looking outward to the community. In particular, in our most recent council meeting, we have authorized spending up to $1 million to support local small businesses. We're doing that in partnership with Wake Tech, the Small Business Development Center, and trying to support our local small businesses, such an important part of our community. And we're hopeful that these grants can support these small businesses through the crisis. And then when we're ready to get back to recovery mode and eventually back to our normal lives, these businesses will be ready to pick up where they left off, providing great services to the community and being the places where we love to go and gather and share together. We're also taking some unprecedented steps for the city to keep government open. We've never been through anything like this. We have, for we think the first time in the city's history, closed city buildings to the public. Through hurricanes, ice storms, major events, the city offices are always open to the public, but we have, as a safety measure to stop the spread of the virus, made the decision to close the city government offices. Again, we think first time in the city's history. Another first in the city's history, we held now 2 city council meetings by virtual format through WebEx, and we successfully had folks call in, participate, kind of like we're going to do tonight, and we're advancing that virtual meeting capability to the Planning Commission and a couple other city boards and commissions, so we can keep the government functioning, get people answers on their permits, reviews, what have you, and that will also contribute to a recovery when the time is right. Also wanted to mention, I picked up on some news recently from the Department of Transportation that impacts District A. We've had some big important transportation projects on the books, just about ready to start getting built. And last week I saw the DOT has canceled several in our area. The first, probably most prominent, being the intersection of Wake Forest and the Beltline. That was scheduled for a really interesting redesign with a double diverging diamond interchange. That project's on hold, as are 2 railroad crossings that are close to or in District A. That is the railroad crossing at Old Wake Forest Road and Durant. Both were scheduled to separate the grade of the railroad from the road, make a safer crossing, more efficient train travel. Another project put on hold by DOT as they try to manage their budget challenges going forward. And speaking of budget challenges, the city's going to be faced with a really difficult situation in the next year. Projections from our city budget office show a $24 to $36 million gap in our budget for next year, primarily due to declined sales tax. All the shopping, meals, and beverages that are not being bought is also tax that the city's not collecting. So we will have a real budget challenge coming up for the next budget cycle. We will be getting reports from the staff on the budget in the next month. We will have budget work sessions and public comment sessions where you can tell us more about what you think we should be spending money on, but it's going to be a very challenging year for us on the budget front. And then finally, also looking ahead, some important decisions coming to council about the housing affordability bond. You may have heard a few weeks back, we received a report from the Parks Board. We decided not to go ahead with the Parks bond this year, recognizing so many residents are in challenging situations. But these challenging situations in many ways contribute to a greater need for housing. And so we continue to look at that as an option to help support our community, not only through the COVID crisis, but the real housing crunch that's really squeezing working folks. So there's lots to look forward to, lots to be optimistic about. I'm still very optimistic about Raleigh's future. Its people are talented, smart, hardworking, compassionate folks. Our economy is diverse and resilient, and I'm sure we will make a strong recovery when the time is right, and it's safe to get out of our houses and get back to normal. So I'm about to, that's about all I had to say, and so I'll wrap up my introductory comments and open the floor. I just wanted to mention 2 of my colleagues have joined us tonight. At-large City Councilor Nicole Stewart's on the line. Thank you for joining us. And I'll just mention very briefly, Nicole led the council on a really moving project. We've raised money for 3 local nonprofits that are on the front lines of helping the community get through this crisis. We put out an initial challenge. Every member of council and the mayor participated. We got some incredible support from anonymous donors, and I think our total fundraise now is over $160,000. So Nicole, you get credit for starting it, and the whole community can share for chipping in. So thank you for that. And thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for doing this. It's great to see everybody.
Yeah, it is. And also nice to see Councilmember Sage Martin has joined us from District G. Sage was big help in putting this together, and glad you could drop in and listen on the call tonight.
Happy to be here and look forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we've got a moderator that's working in the background. It's going to help me direct traffic a little bit. Just briefly, remember our guidelines and rules tonight, roughly the same as City Council citizen petition process. Everybody, we ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We do have the capability to mute lines if we need to, and we can remove people for being disruptive. Of course, we don't want to do that. We know everybody will be nice and kind and respectful. So there is a raise hand feature in the app we're using. So you can use that to get recognized. And again, I'll ask the moderator to help us direct traffic. And I see some people have submitted comments in the comment session. So that's nice. I see you out there, Lindsay. Thank you. So maybe, moderator, while you're identifying the first person, I'll just see if I got any questions here in the comment section. One person asked that everybody be muted. So a little bit of talk about housing bond and helpful link. Lindsay Saunders has dropped in the chat section a link to our housing affordability survey. That is out for comment right now. We'd love to hear from you on what our priorities should be, how much we should spend, and we'll certainly take those comments under advisement as our housing bond process goes forward. So moderator, do you have our first question?
Yeah, I have one.
No one has raised a reaction at this time indicating they wish to ask a question.
I don't know how to raise my hand that way, but here.
Okay, you got it. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Galia Paliga. I'm in District A. I've been here 25 years.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having this. You mentioned a couple of DOT projects have been postponed or canceled, and I was wondering about expanding the half-mile from I-540 to Durant Road, which they were planning to do rather than, expanding 540 to Capitol. Or interim, they were planning to do that, and we had meetings on that, and I haven't heard any updates.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that either. In the news report that I mentioned, it only identified a few projects in the Wake County area that were going to be suspended. So I'm not sure where that is in DOT's funding, but I'll look into that. Thanks for that, Galia.
Okay, and actually related to that, we had meetings with the DOT via the CAC meetings. We've been using the CAC meetings, which have been, and also our property over these 25 years, the property in back of us was rezoned like 3 major times. And so the developers had to go through the process of presenting their cases to the neighbors and presenting the case to the CACs. So I am upset to have the CACs gone because it removes a chance to engage with developers on rezones.
I second that.
Yeah, and so some areas weren't using CACs. North Raleigh was using them very much. I mean, we've had 125 people at CAC meetings before. So I'm very upset that they were taken away from us and the manner they were taken away from us.
All right, and I hear you, and I heard a second on that. I'll address that in my closing wrap-up comments, if that's all right. Who's next?
Betsy.
Betsy, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been chatting with some friends of mine who have ventured into the grocery stores, and there are fools that do not seem to understand the one way. Are the stores responsible for making sure people go one way when they're supposed to go one way?
I don't know who's responsible. That would be my guess. I've just noticed myself, every store seems to be doing it a little differently. Um, I think that more guidance will be coming out. I know the governor, I happened to listen to the governor's press conference last week, and it was clear they're thinking about commercial and retail settings. And, I've seen stores limiting, but let me make a note and I'll pass that along and see what we can find out about retail stores.
I have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
there-
Yeah, and I saw the comments that the raise hand feature isn't working, but
Oh,
it
okay.
seems to be a manageable process. We'll just go ahead with this. So go ahead, Bob.
I'll be quick. I've heard rumors, and they may not even be true, that the recently closed Kmart behind Chick-fil-A at Six Forks Road and Forum Drive is going to reopen as a Target. That's already a very busy intersection close to Six Forks and Strickland, and was just curious. And I've looked online to see if I could find anything on the DOT work or upgrade of any kind that's going to be done as part of that change. And I'm just curious to know if you may be aware, and if not, could you look into, is there any upgrade being planned for the traffic infrastructure there?
Yeah, let me look into that. I saw the news report about the Target moving in. So that's exciting. I think that's great. And let me look into the traffic side and see what we're doing there.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's next?
Oh, I'll just go ahead.
Go ahead, Betsy.
Okay, I'm actually in Sage Martin's district and down here in Gorman, and there is lots of construction. And I'm fine during the week listening to them. And even on Saturdays, I understand getting a half day in or something like that. But if we could do a moratorium on large, heavy power equipment on Sundays and just let people mow their lawns with their like normal equipment. Because I listened to tree grinding machines all last Sunday. And I did call the city council offices and left a message, which I'm sure that they were like, whatever. But we all have to live together, and I'm happy for development. I'm not anti-development. I just like it to be respectful. And I've had this kind of ongoing little thing down here where there's a fraternity that's living illegally in the corner. They're not supposed to be living there. And because city council hasn't gone in and changed the definition of group housing to say that, yes, there are unconventional group housings, and yes, all the fraternity brothers could live in separate apartments with 7 kitchens instead of 1 kitchen. Your zoning enforcement people, Mr. Pierce, they won't do anything about it. And this landlord has been thumbing his nose at city council, basically, and he has the Phi Gamma Delta brothers all on individual leases living over here. And they're gone now because of the pandemic. But I am the same street where the other houses who have now been rented to other fraternity brothers, they pulled themselves a street party permit 15 days after they moved into the house. Did y'all hear about that one? It was like they literally pulled us. They were supposed to block off the street. They hadn't even moved into the block. They've been on the block for like 6 weeks when they pulled the block party permit. Did y'all hear about that? It happened last July, August.
No, I didn't remember hearing about it. You're bringing back some.
Anyway, it's kind of like one of these things where there needs to be a designation down in this area, any place walking distance, about the difference between single family residences and the students. It is a completely different animal. And so I kind of wish I had taken some pictures now, but y'all don't really need to drive down here. Y'all have zoned 3 houses that face Gorman Street. They all have, quote unquote, a shared drive. It's 12 parking spaces and a big slab of concrete. There's no curb, no gutter, stormwater, absolute nightmare, and y'all approved it all. And I do not understand why you can't think outside the box and go, this is one developer, these are a whole bunch of parcels, he's going to load them full of students, they're all going to have 4 cars, they're all going to have their friends come over, there's no off-street parking for any guests to come. He tried to increase his impervious surface and I cold busted him, and Mr. Pierce sent them cease and desist orders, and so he's now got mulch in his front yard because he was trying to increase the paving area after y'all had already given him his CO. So anyway, I'm just saying that the CAC meetings were not ideal, but they were at least a way if the city council members showed up to actually have somebody listen to what you had to say. So maybe the Zoom CAC could make it a little easier, but there's still something to be said for going in person. And if you are angry enough about something, you will get yourself to the meeting at 7 o'clock. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thanks, Betsy. Oh yeah, we're all anxious to get back to meeting in person together. And I used to live down there near Gorman Street, hang out there when I was a student at NC State. You kind of bringing back some fun memories. We don't have fraternity houses up in District A, so you and Sage can connect and work on these Gorman Street problems, and I'll be interested to see how it turns out.
I mean, actually, after the block party, the fraternity brothers were like, oh, well, at least they're not having a block party.
So, Betsy, I just private messaged you my cell phone number and then my council email address. And so we're having, and I took note of what you said, but we're having the District D Zoom session on Thursday.
Okay.
So if you don't get to join that and raise this as well, I do want to connect with you outside of that and discuss.
I know. I mean, I have nothing better to do. This is just, it's a break from the monotony.
Well, then shoot me a text and we can find a time to talk.
Yard work, actually, it was hysterical because at least you can give people some tips on better composting if they can't get rid of their yard, because there is a method of green versus brown to make your compost faster. So since the yard waste pickup isn't, just suggestion.
Yeah. Thanks for that. We've all got lots of extra time on our hands, and things are a little different. Never thought I'd host a district meeting with no shoes on, but here I am. So let's go to the chat section, and let me see if I can knock out a few questions real quick. Leon Cook asked, what's the status of hiring a consultant to plan to replace CACs? We're going to hear more about that shortly. It'll be part of our budget decision. So I'm not sure it'll be next week at our council meeting, but I know the staff is working very hard on that. Obviously, another thing that got interrupted by the virus, but we're all anxious to get started with that process. Let's see. Then I had Ann Sharon. Aaron lives across Wake Forest Road from me. Ann, what's going on in your neighborhood?
Hey there, Patrick. Thanks for doing this. I've got a couple of questions about the CARES Act money that you guys are getting. I anticipate some evictions coming from people who can't pay their mortgage their rent once everything lightens up. And I was hoping that some of the CARES Act money you guys are going to get can coordinate, or will you coordinate with the county, since the county has more Health and Human Services staff and whatnot? Can you guys coordinate together so that we don't double up on one thing and leave something else, untouched? And so that's one question. My second question kind of goes along with it. The money that you guys have already allocated. There's been $1 million and $100,000 for help along the course of the way. Will the CARES Act money reimburse you for that?
Good question. So I haven't had the time to get into the details of the CARES Act, but I know that our Raleigh Chamber they've been sending us some information, holding some conference calls. I was double booked last week, wasn't able to join the session on that. Let me work on those details. I love the idea, and the county's been wonderful to work through this, and I know they're ramping up their community support. I didn't mention it at the start, but early on, a couple more things we did to help folks out. We've appropriated some money to help the families that are living in hotels. It was a modest first step, but it was something that we could do quickly and get some money out there. We've given some relief on utility bills, so folks don't get surprise big bills while they're staying at home, and we're not doing cutoffs just like everybody else. So, for folks that are struggling to get by and having a hard time making those rental payments like you were talking about, maybe some relief on their water bills can help them out. But let me track down those details. That's two great questions. Thank you, Ann.
Sure. Can I add one more thought just so the group can understand this? Wake County is spending about, I believe it's close to $1 million a month for new occupants of hotels. That's just the new ones. They do use hotels to help short-term homelessness, but we're in the multiple million during the course of this pandemic. So I'm hoping that the county and the city can work together to help out that. So I'm putting my 2 cents in for that, for you guys to work together. Thanks so much for having this.
Yeah, absolutely. My heart's with you on that for sure. Thank you. So next, I'm just going down the chat box, and Chantel, my neighbor down the street, has a question.
Yes, the money that the city council is giving to small business owners, I was wondering, what's the reasoning behind requiring them to have a storefront? And then also, are y'all committed to setting aside money in the budget to hiring a consultant for civic engagement, or could that face a budget cut? And those are my 2 questions.
Okay. On the first one, the question was about the storefront requirement. So that was one of the requirements for our small business grant program that we're doing with Wake Tech and the Small Business Development Center. Let me look into that more. We just had a very brief discussion at council. Part of our effort there was to make the process to apply simple. The number of qualifications as minimal as possible. Still want to be responsible with the money, obviously, but the main goal was to get it out there quickly, and the more restrictions, more qualifications you put on the application process makes it difficult to move the money more quickly. But let me track down that the thinking on the storefront requirement.
I'd like to briefly say that I don't think it's equitable or fair. And if they're not going to do that, I'd like to know what the city council plans on doing for small business owners that do not have storefronts.
Okay. Yeah, let me check on that. And
thank you.
Sure. And the other question was about, again, about the CAC and citizen engagement.
Well, specifically, I think you mentioned that you haven't hired a consultant yet, even though it's been about 2 months. So and you mentioned that you were going to revisit the topic during budget talks. So I am wondering, is the council committed to hiring a consultant, or is it going to face, a budget cut?
Well, in a budget time like this, everything's on the table, but my sense is definitely everybody thinks that it's important that we improve our citizen engagement process. I couldn't speak for the council. I haven't had recent detailed discussions, so I don't know, where folks' thinking is about what they think the right number is, or whether they would approve it or not. I'm certainly interested in keeping that process moving forward it was unfortunately disruptive. I would have liked it seen it already started, but we are where we are, and we'll keep moving ahead on that front.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Heidi. Heidi has a question. Heidi, are you still on with us?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, great. We got you now.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
No worries. Thank you for having me. So my question, I have two different questions, and then I wanted to just touch upon something that obviously is very complex, so I won't be able to get into detail, but it's something that I feel like as a nation and as a state, we really need to address. And it's not going to be something that you can just say, okay, we're going to address it in this meeting, or I know exactly where to send you to, because these were my topic that I want to cover, one of them. There isn't a place to send me to. There isn't anything there isn't any, I guess you say, organization out there that exists to help with what I'm going to present to you today. So first of all, I wanted to bring up the issue of schooling. My son, Robert, is able to get onto his online schooling just fine. Luke, however, we cannot get him into his online schooling. We have tried numerous times to try to connect to the Google account, and we have emailed his teacher several times, asked her to please help us get connected so that Luke can go to school. He's 6 years old, and he's on the autism spectrum. He's high functioning, but he really needs more one-on-one attention and assistance. The online program is okay, but with children on the spectrum and kids who have special needs, they don't have a sense of, like, especially for young children, that this is actually school time. They think of the online schooling more like as a game, more like as a YouTube video. So they're not really engaging with the teacher. They're not really learning anything like they should be. And so it's confusing for them. And this whole, situation with the, COVID and U19, and that it's just, I understand that everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to protect each other. Nobody wants anyone to get sick and die. I understand that. However, we can't continue, I feel like as a society and as a nation, we can't continue to live like this. I mean, there will be a lot of people who will be left behind. And I feel like that's just not fair to them. It's not fair to other kids to be left behind, or if it's not fair to adults who need to be in a classroom setting to be able to learn. That's just not fair to them. Another thing I wanted to bring up is the topic of domestic violence and how that shapes our society, how that can shape our community, and what that does in general to someone who, when you use the law to advance when a domestic violence offender uses the law to gain control over the victim, that's very damaging, not only to the victim, but to the victim's children. And there isn't any way to hold anyone accountable. For instance, I had tried to hold the judges accountable, and you can't do that because the judges, they decide whether or not they determine. You can ask a judge to recuse them from your case, but their judge gets to decide whether or not they want to recuse themselves from your case. The other issue that you run into is that social workers, there's a lot of them that get away with lying and cheating in the system, and they're not honest, and they can ruin lives, not just for that interim. They ruin lives permanently, not just financially, but they ruin lives. You can really mentally harm someone, and you can really do a lot of damage to people. And that goes back to the whole, issue of illegal immigration, not separating families. I'm adoptee from South Korea, so do I agree? Do I think it's a great idea to take kids from families? No, I don't think it's a great idea to take children from families. I don't care if you're here illegally or not, or you're a citizen. I think it's a very bad idea to take children away from families. To punish families because they may need help, that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to say you're in our country illegally, so we're going to place your kids in a foster care. It's unacceptable to say because you've been in a tough situation and you're not drugged, you're not a drug addict, you're not a crazy person, but you've been in a very difficult.
Okay, so the moderator was letting us.
Sorry. So that does more harm to children long term than that does more harm to children. And
Heidi, Heidi, you've used up your 3 minutes. My heart's with you. I
I'm sorry.
appreciate. Heidi, that was 3 minutes. We appreciate your comments. My heart's with you. You know, special needs kids is such a wonderful cause, and we need to support those kids everywhere we can. This is challenging. This whole situation is challenging on our education system, but I'm going to certainly pass those comments along. And I've also been troubled about the reports I hear about rising domestic violence, particularly when it involves children. You know, this is a stressful time, and this is really difficult. And you know, we got to keep.
Patrick Benjamin, I don't want to be rude. I know you used my time up, but I want to add.
So, like I said,
away from their parents. That should not be happening. Yeah.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks.
So it looks like I've gotten through everybody that submitted comments in the chat section, but I see Adam raising his hand. Adam, what's on your mind tonight?
This event.
There you go. We got you now.
What's on my mind, as usual, is I've gotten to be known for being an advocate in the city for better pedestrian infrastructure and better bicycling infrastructure. Now that's a long-term thing, and at the same time we're facing an immediate crisis requiring immediate action and change from all of us in so many ways. One of the things that other cities are doing is taking extra space that's now available on the roads that we have expanded to ridiculous widths everywhere for car traffic that are all relatively empty right now, taking that space and putting up some temporary barricades to allow for social distancing and people can get outside and walk and bike in that space. Right now, if you try to walk on some of the 3 or 4 foot sidewalks or some of the goat paths that we've got ramshackled together around town, you're bumping shoulders with people, running in too close. The greenways are packed on weekends, and people are not adhering to the 6 foot rule. Now, am I a scientist now? Do I know if we actually even need the 6 foot? I know there's people arguing about this. I don't care. Right now, I love you all, but stay away from me, okay? Don't come within 6 feet front, behind, left, or right of me. I don't want you that close. But when I'm walking on the sidewalk or the greenway, it's impossible not to come 6 feet. So I have to walk out in the street, and now there's this one errant driver coming 60 miles an hour in a 35, thinking it's a free-for-all today, and I have to juggle with that person. So I did email council about this, and unfortunately for everybody, I got an email back that was disappointing yesterday from Michael Moore, who's one of the leaders, the transportation director. And the answer basically is, unfortunately, here in Raleigh, I'm quoting, we don't have standing plans or readily available resources to quickly implement such a broad closure of streets for additional recreation space. Well, no kidding. I know you don't have it. This is where leadership is. We need urgent action on making more space available for exercise when the gyms are closed, when people are needing to stay apart. If we're going to be staying apart from each other, we know we didn't have this plan. Nobody knew about this, okay? It's not 1918. This is 2020. We didn't know it was going to happen. So here we are. Let's bring out some orange cones and knock this out. Thank you. My point's made.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate those comments. Again, my heart's with you. And this is something that I think we ought to get our business community involved with. I'm going to pass it along, you know, talk with Mr. Moore and see if our business alliance organizations can help us out on this front too. And by the way, Rachel and I have taken the dogs out on some less traveled greenway trails lately in North Raleigh. We've been having a great time getting out, and there's some hidden walks out there where not a lot of people are. For example, one day we drove over to Shelley Lake. The parking lot at the bottom of the dam was packed. So we kept on driving. We went to Wooten Meadows, which is on Millbrook at the intersection of Leesville and Millbrook. There was like one or two other people there. We saw 5 people the whole time we were there. nobody got close to us, and we discovered a nice new park. Wooten Meadows came into the park system relatively recently, and a master plan has been adopted, but not a lot of development of the space has happened yet. And so there's a neat little trail down the creek and an old mill down there. So encourage everybody to get out and use the greenways, find those places that aren't as crowded, and keep practicing social distancing. But you're right on several points. Thanks for those comments, Adam. All right. Anybody else on the call got a question or comment? Yes, sir, Leon.
For you. I found it strangely ironic that the timing for deleting or disbanding the CACs occurred prior to the survey for affordable housing. This left out a lot of people in Southeast Raleigh because they don't have, a lot of them don't have access to the internet. They have limited time on their cell phones. So where do we get the input for them?
Yeah.
And I found not only that, but the timing of doing away with the CACs without a replacement or without a plan for a replacement. That's what's so ridiculous.
Thanks, Leon. Yeah, I'm paying close attention to the housing affordability bond and make sure we get good responses for that. Appreciate these comments.
In what vehicle? What media?
Well, mainly it's our online survey, but there'll be lots of efforts going into more detailed questions of how we spend that housing money. It's going to be one of the most important decisions we make this year.
Right.
And it's coming up pretty quickly. So, you know, keep in touch and let us know what you're hearing out there.
And I'd like to find out how much input you got from Southeast Raleigh.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Looks like Tim has questions.
Let's see.
Chat.
Yeah, I saw some chats drop in here. Tim, are you on the line? You got a question for us? I couldn't tell. It looked like a couple comments, but I didn't spot a question. Tim, are you on the line? I must have lost Tim. Let me try and figure out what his question was here.
He was asking about the custom bus shelters.
Oh yeah, here it is. Has the contract, let's see. Has the contract for the 30 custom bus shelters been finalized, or will it be reevaluated with the budget considerations? I don't know. I assume that, I mean, we approved it several months ago. I can't remember exactly when. Maybe 2-3 months ago. Let me look into that, Tim.
I think it was just 2 months.
Yeah, the last 2 months, it felt like 2 years. All right. Thanks for spotting that comment. I see Steve with the, looks like Eastgate Park background. That's cool. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I actually have something positive. Just really nice job on that. The community center's looking good. And what was really sweet to see is they had only, the original contract, I guess, only had the exterior painted, but they actually took care of the bathrooms out back. And yeah, it really looks good. It was much needed, and not that we can go inside, but you know, on my now 3 times daily walks with the dog, you know, I got a peek in there, and it looks really good. So nice work on that. And I'm probably just going to harass you about sidewalks and other things now.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. I'm anxious to get over there. I actually haven't seen it myself. You know, we voted at the Methodist Church this past year because Eastgate was closed. And, you know, looking forward to getting back over there, and I need to make a trip and come check it out.
It looks great. I think we're all looking forward to, getting back in there, and it's just such a great walkable voting site, and everybody enjoys it. And quite frankly, it's been great. You see a ton of more people in the park in terms of, hanging out on the field and stuff like that. And so, it's all been good. So, I really appreciate it. And I got a shout out to the Park and Rec people. Every once in a while you shoot them a question and they get right back to you. So the staff continues to be impressively responsible from the city. I can't say enough good things about those folks.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve. And boy, those bathrooms were in bad shape too. This is just all good news out of East Park. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm not even going to have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Those that know. It was time.
Yeah, TMI.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. That's great. We'll make a trip over to check it out. Looking forward to seeing that. So it looks like we've got our participant numbers going down, and we got a few folks that said they're going to leave, like Councilor Stewart. Thanks for joining us, Councilmember Stewart.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great to see y'all. And I've taken a lot of notes tonight. So I left my email in the chat if you need anything from me directly, but Patrick's a great representative. So appreciate y'all. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Let's see. I'm just reading through a few more comments that came in here. Appreciate y'all submitting these. I see you. I'm not spotting any questions. So I guess we may be winding down here. Maybe let's check and see if any of our non-video participants are waiting to submit a question.
Councilman, can I add a comment?
Certainly, Bob. Go ahead.
Heidi mentioned domestic violence. I'm a past board member of Interact, which is a local organization dedicated to assisting victims of domestic violence. And I want to thank the city and the city council and the county for the support that I'm speaking for Interact, have gotten. And right now, as you can imagine, is a difficult time. I did a conference call this morning related to some of the issues, and it's a world-class organization, one of the finest in the country. It is not for profit. It is funded by predominantly people just giving money to it. But their facility related to the shelter has 45 beds and is completely full. Mm-hmm. And the county has supported the fact with what they call a healthy hotel to try to get a little bit more room for victims. But I just want to make a comment that the county and the city have been very supportive, and I'll speak for them. We appreciate that.
Well, that's nice. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for doing that work. I remember when Interact first opened their new facility over on Overload. It's a beautiful building, a wonderful project, an incredible reinvention of that space from the old YWCA. So fine organization. You're exactly right. Thanks for those comments. I see Betsy raising her hand. I think I missed Richard's comment. Maybe I'm looking back up in the comments section. I think we got the one about CACs, and Richard wanted to say that a decision was made to not put the survey, and I think you mean the housing bond survey, in the Carolinian. I hear you. I didn't know about that, but I've made a note about the housing bond survey, and I'll pay attention to that going forward, Richard. Thank you. All right, and it looks like maybe a little conversation here about surveys and bus shelters. And Richard, did I get your question, Richard? Oh, not really. I tried to answer it, but Richard, I tell you what, why don't you shoot me an email and we'll dig into details of your question offline. I'm glad to answer the question. I just wasn't quite sure what the question was. So Michael wanted to know if these meetings, these type of listening sessions would be a regular broadcast. Great question. I'm before, just now, I wasn't real sure how this would go. I've certainly learned a lot and have gathered a lot of great feedback and questions. And I appreciate, again, you all calling in and participating. We've got a team that helped put this together, and I'm really grateful for their help, including moderator Travis Bailey. They put their time and energy into this, and I'm glad to hear from you all. This has been really helpful to me. We'll look into doing this again and see if we can do it on some kind of a regular basis. When I started this as my first term on council, I fully expected we were going to be having district meetings like this in person at our favorite community centers in District A. All of that was in planning right at the time that the virus was starting to move to the US. Everything got disrupted. So this has just been great. It's been wonderful to make the most of the situation as we have it. And I'm gonna wrap up a little bit with some closing comments, but let me see if there's any more questions out there. I see your question, Richard, about addressing CACs and closing comments. I will do that, along with going down my list of notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes, sir, Leon.
One of the concerns I think about putting the bond survey on the Carolinian or any other newspaper media is the fact that it would be 12 pages. What newspaper would put 12 pages worth of survey in the paper?
Yeah.
I think some of the questions on the survey are not necessary, particularly the ones at the end, or that are more personal than anything else.
Okay, let me follow up on that. Like I said, wasn't aware of the decision. Didn't really get a lot of details about how they were getting that survey out, or how the questions were written. But I'll get up to speed on that and let you know what I can find out. So thanks again. Oh, sorry, Betsy.
The interest in affordable housing, and especially the South Side, I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you're not aware of the health study that is being conducted in Louisville, where they're planting trees and greening, bringing shade to areas of the city the health effects on the residents. So I was just wondering if you all had looked to see what's going, because there's actually a doctor who's doing a 20-year study on blood pressure, diabetes, and all this, and it has to do with tree canopy, because usually the more affluent parts of the city have more tree canopy, and I want to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Love it. I've been a big fan of Gil Penalosa since I saw him come to Raleigh and talk about Dix, and he spends a lot of time talking about the importance of getting out and exercising, and it really doesn't take a lot of fancy infrastructure. It takes a nice wide sidewalk and special attention to the needs of pedestrians of all ages. And his guidance, which I've taken to heart, was always to plan for the youngest in our community and the oldest in our community. Because if people at the end of stage of life and people at the early stage of life can access a sidewalk, can get to a park, then everybody can get to a park. So, that was certainly something at the top of my list to work on this year. Clearly, we've gotten off track a little bit with this virus, but parks are near and dear to my heart. It's part of why I got involved in city government in the first place. And yeah, I'm with you on the tree canopy and all the good things that come along with it. So I don't see any more questions in the comments section, but I did take several notes here, and I got a short list of stuff I need to look into about the widening of falls between Durant and 540. Lots of questions about CAC process, and to the extent it helps, I can share that during our meeting, I got a note saying that the money for the consultant for citizen engagement will be paid for by council contingency funds, a fund that has already been budgeted for in our current budget. So that is not, to respond to a question that was asked earlier, that's not something we would be revisiting for next year's budget. Mostly when I've talked about the city budget process, I've been referring to the process of writing a budget for the city fiscal year that starts on July 1, so the 12 months that are coming up. This will be something that we already have money for, so I think the staff is planning to get us an action item on that here in the next month or so. I'm not exactly sure the timing, but again, we're all anxious to see that get started. Thought it would have been started a long time ago, and we've gotten disrupted, as has a lot of other stuff. I'm going to look into the eligibility for stores that do not have a storefront for some of the small business grant support that we've been working on. Going to look into the traffic issue up at Six Forks and Strickland with the new Kmart, maybe going to be redeveloped to be a Target. And check in on this heavy equipment and construction going on Sundays, some details of the CARES Act and how we can partner with Wake County. Some passionate comments about special needs children and getting them educated during this challenging time and dealing with issues of domestic violence, both of which I'm going to reach out to our city staff to have conversations with the County Social Services Department, appropriate offices to be working on those fronts, and we'll see if we can't do something on the city side to support those efforts more than we already do. Adam, bike and pedestrian issues, thanks for your comments. We're going to get working on it while we're recovering. We're going to get back focused on it as soon as we're back to normal. Leon, got your comments on the housing survey. I'm going to follow up and look into that. I think we got the questions on the bus shelter, and on a positive note, Steve, thanks for sharing details about Eastgate Park. That's all good news. I see a few more comments coming in, so let me just make sure that I didn't skip over this. So Lubin wanted to make sure I was going to address public involvement in the CACs at the end. Yes, I'm fully expecting a lot of public involvement on improving citizen engagement going forward. That's the plan. So again, we should have that action item from our city staff here in the next month or so. And the money part, I think we've already addressed. But Richard did ask the question, would it be better spent on something else? I gotcha, I hear you. And we've got what looks like a lively discussion picking up in the chat session. So appreciate y'all participating. Unless there's any final remarks, I'm gonna go ahead and ask Travis to close us down. This has been really helpful to me. Thank you all for participating. Stay safe, stay home.